All right, so Michelle Bonningwell is our director of children's ministry. She's going to be doing the sermon with me today, so I'm going to let her get started as we talk about the power of words.
So to get started, I want you guys to take a trip back to childhood with me, probably like middle school, elementary school. And there was a saying that a lot of us used to hear: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, while we're still taking this trip down memory lane, I want you guys to go back to 7th grade with me, back when I was 12, 13 years old, and I was a tall, gangly girl with lots of arms, legs, and feet, clumsy as all get out. This was also the year I decided that it would be an awesome idea for me to run track. I couldn't play basketball because I was a klutz. I couldn't do many other sports, but running, that would be easy, right? Straight lines, I can handle that. First week of track practice, coach has us running sprints up and down the bus driveway. And as you heard, it was a bus driveway. Blacktop, asphalt, driven up and down by these heavy buses day after day, year after year. So of course it was uneven. It was full of holes. And as I'm running my final sprint, I trip. And I slide down the asphalt, and I don't stop till I hit the girl in front of me. As I stand up, I'm covered in blood, asphalt, dirt, a huge mess. My coach comes over to check on me, pours the green soap on me, and if any of you guys know what that is, it may have been something we just used in the South. I think it's a torture device, really, because it was horrible. That night, I got home and sought out a family member, wanting some encouragement. Just, hey, let me know I can really do this. Well, my family member looks at me and says, Michelle, I don't know why you're even trying. You're not the athlete in the family, honey. You can't do it. In fact, you're not even the smart one in the family. You're the pretty one. And when you learn just to stand there and look pretty, life is going to be easier for you. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words hurt more than anything. My family member, she could have supported me. She could have said words of affirmation. But instead, 25 plus years later, those words stuck with me. Yes, her words don't define me. They don't encapsulate who I really am. If they did, I wouldn't be standing here today. But those words had such an effect on me that I would not run again until 4 years later in high school. And even then, her words ran into the back of my mind. James 3, verses 4 and 5 say, look at the ships also. Though they are so large and driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. When I first started dating my husband, his parents showed Belgian draft horses. If you're not familiar with them, think Clydesdales without the hair on their feet. They would show these horses all over the country, and my father-in-law, David, would drive these horses from the top of the wagon. The only thing guiding them were these little bitty reins that he would braid between his fingers. And I remember sitting on top of the wagon with him, holding on for dear life, thinking, how can something so small control something so big? Our tongues are just like that. Our tongues are controlled by our hearts. Our hearts controlled by our emotions. Our words, they come from our hearts. And God gave us these words, and he gave us power when he gave them to us. But with that power comes responsibility, because with these words, we not only control what we see in the world, but how others see it. Our choice of words can uplift. They're the foundation for relationships. My family member and I, due to her words to me, we don't have that strong of a relationship just because of how she talks to me. Words can hurt. They uplift. They transform. They inspire. Words can bring life and likewise death.
All right, so I'm going to tell you two things you already know. Number one is that words can be very helpful and uplifting. You can use words to encourage someone, to bless somebody. The things that come out of your mouth, they can be sacred and holy. That's number one. Now, number two is your words can be very hurtful and very unhelpful. Sometimes the stuff that comes out of our mouth, isn't the best. Now we know these things, and you know these as one who speaks, but you also know these as one who receives. Now James acknowledges this, and we find this one in verses 7 through 9. In here, the Bible says, "For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed, and has been tamed by mankind." Now listen to what it says next. "But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison." Now listen to what he says next. So we got this tongue. It's so difficult for us to tame it. Now he says it has two functions. "With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God." So our tongue then, our words, our mouth is both constructive and destructive. With it we can bless our Father. With it, we can also curse the Father's creation. Now, I'm going to say this, like some of the most memorable events of your life have actually been words that have been spoken to you. I just know that about you. Like, there was a day that somebody looked at you and they told you that they loved you. And you're going to remember that time. There's a day that, a boss or a parent or a teacher or a coach said something like, "Keep up the good work." And you heard that, and it meant so much to you. There was a day that you're about ready to quit, and someone said, "Don't give up." And because of that, you were able to keep on keeping on. There's a day that someone said, "I accept you," or "You're good enough for me. Don't change a thing about who you are." There's a day that someone said, "You make me happy. You bring me joy." Now, these are some of life's best moments. Now, I can also say that some of life's most painful moments for you have been words that have been spoken to you. Now, I want you to just think about this. We're like stewards of the words that God gives to us. This is powerful, important stuff. There was a time when someone may have said not so many words, that you're not good enough. Someone may have said, "I don't care what you do. You're not important to me." Someone said, you don't know what you're talking about. I think a lot of us have probably said, "I'm too busy for you." We may not have said, "I'm too busy for you," but we say, I can't do that right now, or maybe we'll do that later, but later never comes. So what we're actually saying is that I'm too busy for you. What about this one? "Well, what have you been doing all day?" That one doesn't really help, does it? That one kind of hurts. Now, has anyone ever read the book, The 5 Languages of Love? Anybody? So, you read it? Do you like it? I haven't read. I've had sections at a time read to me before. But I know enough to be dangerous. So there's, like we're all loved in 5 different ways. So like physical touch, like you can hug, hold hands, whatever. There's acts of service. There's gifts. Hopefully in the last couple days you've gotten some of those. Now, the most important one for many women is going to be quality time. Like, let's spend time together. Let's do nothing together. Let's just put the gadgets and the responsibilities away and just be together. So quality time, especially in our culture of distraction and busyness, is going to be essential. But for men, many men, the most common love language for many of us is going to be words of affirmation. So to give you a hint of how to love me, like come up to me, "Craig, seriously, that was like the best sermon I've ever heard since like 7 days ago when that was the best one, and you're awesome, man." But seriously, like, many of us men, and all women too, we all like words. This is how you love somebody. This is one of the ways that you love somebody is by offering these affirming words. Now, Michelle is going to tell us about the power of words of affirmation. So just think about like somebody she's telling you the story. Think about somebody in your life that you can encourage, somebody in your life that you can affirm and really then love in that way.
So I want you to think back to some time when someone said some affirming words to you. And now that you've got that in your mind, think back to who it was. Sometimes those affirming words can come from the least likely of sources. I've been lucky in my soon-to-be 39 years of life that I have some amazing friends, new friends and old friends, who have been there for me to lift me up. But the story I'm going to share with you comes from somebody who was probably the least likely. A few years ago, I was working in another church and going through a tough time. Wasn't sure if what I was doing was really what I was supposed to be doing. And during this time, over a period of about 8-9 weeks, these little notes started showing up on my office door. Right after the 10:30 service, I have one of them right here. The notes came from a 12-year-old girl. She was one of my volunteers. And every Sunday, she and I would spend time together. In fact, Wolf's not here, so I can say Wolf had a crush on her, so she spent a lot of time in my office. Well, she had noticed by creeping on her mom's Facebook page that I had posted something about feeling really stressed out. And so, after much prayer, she decided it was her job to affirm me, to let me know that what I was doing was making a difference. So over the course of that 8 or 9 weeks, she would leave these notes on my office door, and each one of them contained a Bible verse and just words of encouragement, letting me know what I was doing was making a difference. And I'm going to read this. This is her final note to me. Dear Michelle, I do hope and pray that God will continue to show you the light and that you will continue to follow it. I assume you are probably wondering why I'm doing all this. Well, because one day I was on Facebook and I saw a woman named Michelle Operhall Bonnewell had posted that she was really stressed, and something inside me just clicked, like a light bulb being turned on. So I prayed about it for a few days, and then God showed me exactly what to do. And so this all started. Every week I wrote a new letter, and every week I put it in your office. Well, I tried to do it every week anyway. I hope it has all paid off and that you have come closer to God. And if you ever want to repay, just do the same for someone else, because my goal is to bring people closer to God through everything they do. You've made a difference in my life, and I'm simply returning the favor. You don't know how much I love you. Love, your secret helper. Well, through deductive reasoning, I was able to figure out who this girl was and who it was leaving, and let her know that she made a difference to me. I was at a point where I was ready to give up and walk away. And through her words, I was able to feel better about what I was doing and change my course of direction. You see, even the smallest of words can help someone.
Yeah, so, not all stories are quite that positive and uplifting. Now, this one's really cool, and this is something that many of us, can recreate in someone's life. I remember, when I got my first job in a church, it was in Atlanta, Georgia. We had just moved there. I was starting graduate school, and I found this guy named John. John was the youth minister before I got there. I had never worked as a youth minister in a church before. I kind of volunteered with the student ministry a little bit at our church in Kentucky, but John, everyone loved him. He was there one Sunday, and I was there the next Sunday, and my biggest problem was that I was not John. We did this for 3 or 4 weeks, and I think you probably remember this, Amber. Some of the kids came up to me after youth group one night, and they just were saying, Craig, none of the kids think this is fun. Some of us aren't thinking we're going to come back, and I was trying the hardest I could. I was working with the adults. We had planned these things together. We had prayed. We, thought we did it with excellence, but it just wasn't good enough, and these kids let me know that. Now, I was at this time, I was ready to just throw in the towel. I just quit a job and moved hundreds of miles to the south. And I remember I talked to the pastor the next day, and his words were just so helpful to me. I don't think it was for that conversation. I may not have kept doing what I was doing. I remember he talked to me, and he just said, Craig, these kids are really hurting. They love John, and John loved them, and he was there for 5 years, 6 years, and these kids are grieving. And Craig, I want you to know that hurting people hurt people. Now, this probably has very little to do with you, and it really has just to do with their situation. Now, the adults, they think you're doing a good job. I think you're doing a good job. You've been affirmed if you're calling into ministry, and really just think about where God fits in all this. Now, we need those types of words to help us. We're going to be criticized. You are. If you try to be proactive and make change and do things, there's going to be people who are critical. Now, we should not expect grace-filled, loving words, from imperfect people all the time. But one of the things I want you to think about is like when we throw out like a hurting word, um, it's like when you shoot a gun, you can't get the bullet back. When you offer out one of these really hurtful words, you can't get it back. You just can't. Time can make some healing, but it's just you can't get that bullet back. So verse 10, here the Bible says, from the same mouth, now think about you, okay? From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. So he's saying, like, yeah, we're going to say good things, we're going to say not so good things, but this isn't the way that it has to be. Like, let's use our mouth to build people up. Let's use our mouths to embody grace. Let's use our mouths to encourage and give life and affirmation to others. Now, I'll say this, from my experience in life and from my observation of life, our life is going to make the most sense when our words are going to be thoughtful and holy and sacred and affirming and life-giving. Now, our life we're going to struggle, and other people are going to struggle around us when our words come off as like really critical, cynical, sarcastic, whatever. I would say like really the quality of our words is going to have a very direct correlation to the quality of our lives. Now, we have a movie clip, and Michelle, I want you to introduce this one for us.
How many of you have seen The Pursuit of Happiness? It's a Will Smith movie, came out a while back. It's one of my favorite movies just because it's great for one-liners. Will Smith plays a dad who has lost his job, his wife has left him, and he's left homeless with his son. Throughout the movie, he and his son have lots of cool talks, and the clip we're going to show you is just one example of how words can really hurt someone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. You'll probably be about as good as I was. That's kind of the way it works, and I was below average. So you'll probably ultimately rank somewhere around there, so really, you'll excel at a lot of things, just not this. So I don't want you out here shooting this ball around all day and night, all right? All right? All right, good. Hey. Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me. All right? You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period. Let's go.
So through Hollywood magic, the father in this clip was able to see how his words affected his son, and he was able to turn that around. But in real life, that doesn't always happen. Our words come out, and they spew, and the next thing you know, the person with you is feeling defeated and broken. Our words and how we choose to use them can do just that. They can be the difference of someone feeling uplifted or defeated.
Yeah, so there's a few ways we want to actually show you how to practice this. I don't think it's enough to know that, words are essential. We want to look at what the Bible says about that. So most of this is going to just be wisdom from Proverbs, but Michelle is going to get us started off on our first kind of practical tool of how to relate better, how to communicate better, how to love better.
So Proverbs 15:1 says, "A gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare." Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and what they're saying just incites rage in you, anybody, and all you want to do is prove your point? Yeah, me too. It happens a lot. But the way we respond to people can make or break a relationship. When we're little, we're told, to the best way to win a fight is with your words. I've learned the best way to keep a fight going is to keep talking, Michelle. When you're in that moment of passion, that moment of rage, think about what it is you really want to say and the best way to say it. Not everything needs to be said. Walk away. If you can't say anything nice at all, it's kindergarten. Walk away. Take that time, count to 10, think about it before you speak. We will live in a world of text messaging and Facebook. I don't know about you guys, but 90% of my conversations with people happen via text message. And it's so easy to look at those texts and go, he said what? And respond. Because there's a screen between us. I don't have to think about what that person's going to look like when I say these words. I don't have to think about how they're going to react.
All right, so I want us to look at this next Bible verse, and this would be a really good one to commit to memory. This really teaches us how to communicate. This one teaches us how to relate. It's James chapter 1, verse 19. And here James says, understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. And here's this three-phase thing of how to communicate, how to relate. Number one is be quick to listen. Number two, be slow to speak. And then number three, be slow to get angry. So let's talk about listening for a second. So have you guys ever been interrupted by somebody? Show of hands. Has anyone been interrupted by someone? And it's like, you just want to say, okay, I'm sorry the middle of my sentence has interfered with the beginning of your sentence here. Okay, I'm going to say it again because this is really funny. You say, I'm sorry that the middle of my sentence, what I was saying, has interfered with the beginning of your sentence, you interrupting me. Okay, now you're getting it. Okay, it's good stuff. You guys are up too late watching a football game, guys. So really, one of the first duties of love is to listen. I think, I didn't come up with this. I think it was Henry Nouwen that came up with it. But he said, when you listen, don't listen to reply. When you listen to understand. And this is just going to be critical. Don't listen to try to win the argument, to try to think what you're going to say next. Listen to just fully understand the person. You don't learn from talking. You learn from listening to other people. Now, we live in a world where there's 140 characters that we put on Twitter. We live in a world of instant gratification. But I want to tell you something. To fully understand somebody, it takes a lot more than 140 characters. And it's not instant gratification. It takes a long time. But I think in this culture of busyness and distraction, I think we have this need that's emerging more and more every day. And we've always had this need, but I think it's more prevalent today than ever. We have this need that we can be both understood and accepted. So 3 years ago, I was in California. I went to a workshop put on by Cloud and Townsend, and there was 50 of us from throughout the country. There's a few pastors there, some educators, some business leaders. It was a leadership training event, and they broke us out into groups of 6 or 7. So they asked for a volunteer, and this woman in my group, she volunteered to go first. And she was a school superintendent. She lived in Colorado. And they asked for another volunteer, and this was a businessman from Georgia. And he sat in a chair, and she sat he sat right across from her. Now the therapist in there, he said, "Okay, what I want you to do," and the rest of us were standing behind her so we could see him. He said, "What I want you to do is I want you to tell." His name was Jimmy. I want you to tell Jimmy, just tell Jimmy what you love about yourself. Just give Jimmy your best stuff. And she said, well, my teachers say I'm a supporter of them. The community, when they give me the reviews, they say I do a great job. I'm a visionary leader. My kids, tell me I'm a good mom. And then and it was really cool to listen to her. And Jimmy, he was just there looking at her, and all he was doing was just listening to her. And then the therapist said, well, what I want you to do is tell Jimmy, some of the things you don't like about yourself. So then all of a sudden she says, well, I'm impatient with my kids. I yell at them too much. I'm too hard on myself. Sometimes, and she looked at him, sometimes I feel alone. I don't respond to criticism very well. Even though I'm the boss, I just feel really insecure sometimes, and I feel like I always have to prove myself. Now, this conversation went on, probably for 10 minutes or something like that. And at the end, the therapist asked the woman, the therapist said, how did that feel? So this woman, she thought about it for a second. She got all emotional, and I remember she started crying a little bit. And she said, well, yeah, it totally felt wonderful. For the first time in a long time, I just felt that someone was listening to me. I think in 10 minutes that he probably understands me more than almost anybody else. He wasn't wanting something from me. He wasn't wanting me to see his side. He was listening to understand. Now, we need that. We need to be the listener. And as a speaker, we need a few people that will be that person for us. Now, the next, we're quick to listen. Now, we're slow to speak. Have you ever heard anyone that, even they'll self-profess, okay, I'm just going to think out loud here? Has anyone ever heard that phrase before? I'm going to think out loud. Don't do that. There's nothing good that comes from thinking out loud. The only time that you should think out loud is if you're in a creative brainstorming session. It's all right to throw out there if there's this permission to have bad ideas out there. Otherwise, listen to what James says here. Be slow to speak. The next one is going to be, and be slow then to get angry. Now this one's just critical. Anger's going to happen. It just is. Some anger is good. It's like Benjamin in the front row here. He's in this program where by the end of his sophomore year, so he's got a year and a half to finish this, he has a project that he has to do for his school. And it's a very significant project, and he has to pick something that's going to be important to him. And for him, he picked the national deficit. He reads in the newspaper, gets online, and sees that, every minute, our federal budget deficit increases by $1 million or something like that. And, there's anger, and it's righteous anger, that this is not right, that today's generation is building on the backs of future generations. I mean, we wouldn't do this to our kids. Why should? And, so he thinks about this, and he's going to build a website, about the national deficit for teens to help them understand the importance of this issue. So that type of anger is good. Now, there's also this selfish type of anger. Okay, I'm not going to get my way, therefore I'm going to get angry. And when we have that selfish, unrighteous type of anger, now you've been there before, right? Both as the giver and the recipient. Now, here the words are critical. Be slow to get angry. It's just when we're angry, the words that we're going to say. And unfortunately, here's what happens with this. Usually when we're angry, we're around the people that we love the most. And then when we say these hurtful words, we're actually hurting the people that we love the most. So when this type of anger happens, when we don't get our way, these are essential tips. Be quick to listen, be slow to speak, and slow to get angry.
And our final thing is not everything needs to be said. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. I sometimes have what my son refers to as word vomit. Do you guys have that, where it just comes out? Yeah, it's not a good thing. We all have opinions, and we're all entitled to our opinions, but not everybody needs to hear them. A few weeks ago, my son Wolf texted me from school, his first mistake, texting from school, to let me know he had detention. He hadn't finished his homework. He didn't turn it in. By the time I got to school that day to pick him up, I was pretty livid because the story changed throughout the day. It started out as the entire class got detention. Yeah, not buying that one, kid. To, oh, half the class, to like 3 people. Oh, no, Mom, it was just me. So by the time he got in the car, the word vomit was trying to get out. I was angry. I was disappointed in him. But when he got in the car, I looked at his face, and I could see the disappointment. I could see that he was more upset with himself than any of my words could convey. So instead of saying what I wanted to say, we went to Chick-fil-A and had a peppermint shake. And Wolf told me what happened. And his response was, Mom, why didn't you chew me out? That's what you normally do. Well, sometimes the words don't need to be said. Sometimes the person is thinking exactly what you want to say, and it's going through their mind tougher than you can say it. When you have these words, the word vomit that needs to come out, think about, is there anything constructive that's actually going to come from your words? How will your words affect you in the long run? How will they affect others? We live in a world of social media, and it's easy to type whatever it is you're thinking and think there's no repercussions. Before I went into ministry, I worked as a newspaper reporter, and I don't know how many times I would sit in interviews, whether it be a coach, a family member who's just lost someone in a plane crash, someone overly emotional, where they would just spout off what they were feeling. And most of the time, it was really hurtful. And we would get those phone calls the next day. Why would you print that? Why would you say it? Think about what it is you're saying before you say it and the repercussions.
Yeah, so a couple of the most powerful phrases you're going to use is just something like, I'm sorry. And just a simple couple words together, so powerful. Can you forgive me? Can we work on this? Just little words of encouragement like, don't quit, don't give up, you're so close. I see in you so much potential. I accept you for who you are, I love you. Just little phrases like that, they can change lives, including the one who's speaking it. 2016 is right here, and I think it'd be a really, really cool thing for all of us, the church, if we can just really use words that encourage. I mean, there's going to be time when evaluation is necessary. Speak those words with both grace and truth. Constructive criticism, that's how we grow. The way we do that, though, is, okay, I love you. I think you're doing a great job. I wonder if we could think about, this possibility together, how we can grow in this area. Can we do that? And just like really, parents, just like affirm your kids. They're great. They're not perfect, but they're great. Affirm them. And if you're married, if you're in a relationship, whatever, let's have our words be holy, sacred, grace-filled, loving, life-giving, and I really believe then the quality of our life is going to be directly correlated to the quality of our words. So let us pray. God,